There are a few scenarios in WARDCAM that can cause undesirable results when it comes to ramping, either ramping over a long distance on an arc, which results in a large portion of the hole being cut at a very slow speed, or not ramping down at all, which can result in nibs at your lead-in, lead-out spot. First of all, we'll take a look at lead settings on lines and see what this looks like. So first of all, rectangular part here. These are typical lead settings where on the outside we've got a positive value for the tab width to keep the part from falling into the tank. We've got a lead in and a little bit of a lead out, so we move away from the edge of the part when we're shutting the water and the abrasive off. So if we do that, post this out. And so it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to bring this into our optional iGEMS package because it makes it a bit easier to see what's happening in the CNC file. Here on the inside cut, as we see, cuts this line segment at 77 inches a minute, and then as it approaches the lead in, lead out point, starts ramping down to the low speed so the stream catches up before it gets to that lead in point to minimize the nib on the back. So ideally, that's what it should look like. Basically, as long as you have any value for a lead out on a straight line, then you should get correct ramping. If you don't have a lead out and your tab width is greater than or equal to 0, then it's not going to ramp down. And this can result in a large nib on the back side of the part at the lead in, lead out point. And we will put that there. So inside we'll leave at 0 and save and exit. And we'll just click and click to reapply the lead. Create a new file. And then here we see that we're not slowing down, ramps up to the full speed and keeps going at full speed to the end of the cut. And similar fashion on the outside. Put slightly negative value here, even as small as 1/1000th of an inch. And put those on. We'll see now here on the inside that it ramps down again. And on the outside, it's also ramping down. But really, best practice is to have some sort of a slight lead out so that you do move away from the edge of the part. And then that way you can avoid that whole scenario on your straight lines. Now arcs, it's a little bit of a different story. Put this back to our default settings. So now let's take a look at what happens when we put our leads at different places on arcs. Right now I've got this set as, again, kind of typical lead in, lead out. No tab on the inside, 20th tab on the outside, a little bit of lead out. And I did the auto to give us this. I put the marking lines in here for reference later. And we'll go ahead and post this out. And again, we get close to that lead in point and it starts to ramp down to the slow speed, and similar on the outside. Slows down and lead out, so that looks good. If we, however, put a slightly negative value in for the tab, which means cutting past where we let in. So negative value, or cutting past the lead in point. You could think of it as overcut. And we'll do 10 thou negative. 10 thou inside outside. Any sort of lead out, or if it's 0, doesn't matter. And I'll just left click to replace those. Hit our next button. And now we'll see on the inside cut that it starts slowing down here and goes down to the slow speed, does that portion of the arc at the low speed, and then on the outside starts slowing down here and does that entire portion there at the 23 inches a minute. As you can imagine, that would have a pretty negative impact on your productivity. Go back to toolpath, and for the outside cut, as long as this lead out is slightly past the 3 o'clock position or the 9 o'clock position, then it'll start ramping down a little bit more like we expect it. So as long as this lead out is slightly past the 3 o'clock position there, and we'll do a similar thing on the inside cut. Now this time, because we're going in the other direction, we're doing the inside cut counterclockwise. We want our lead in north of the 3 o'clock quadrant point there. And now we see we start ramping down, and it's a little bit more like we expected. And then similar fashion on the outside, full speed to there, and then starts ramping down. If we go and we just move that the lead out so it's just north of the 3 o'clock on the outside and just south of the 3 o'clock on the inside, then again we'll get long ramp down distances. So if you have to have overcut, then it's best to position the lead again on the outside so that the lead out is just past the 3 o'clock position, and on the inside be just again past or north of the 3 o'clock position.